turn this over to Governor Parson
All right.
and thank him for making such time in his busy schedule to have this roundtable.
All right. Well, thank you, Julie, and glad to finally be here, as you say. But that's okay. If we have to wait a week or two to be able to talk about these issues, that's okay, because there's a much bigger picture than anything happening at a fast pace is what we're looking for. 3 years ago, when I became governor, and most of you all know the story how I became governor in the state of Missouri. One of the things, myself and my chief of staff that's here with me today, we said, what can we really do to change the needle in Missouri, and almost put politics to the side as much as possible? What really makes a difference in our state? The two things we talk about continuously for 3 years is workforce development and infrastructure. Those are not political issues. Those are two things that are good for all of us. It's good for our communities, it's good for our education systems, and it's good as we build the infrastructure of tomorrow. I will tell you this, even going through a pandemic, we've still been able to maintain to move forward in workforce development, with business expansions, with jobs, all of this during the middle of a pandemic, dealing with all we had to deal with. It never changed our footprint of what we were trying to accomplish in the education arena. And let me just say, for every one of you sitting at this table today, whoever you represent, the next 3 years you're going to have opportunities that you've never had before, whoever you represent. I am just telling you. When you think of the money that's coming down the federal level, that had come in a series of different pools of money that has come down, we have been very fortunate in this state that we don't have to use that funding to backfill, any of our expenses, because our economy has been good and it continues to be strong in this state. So where other states have used this money to backfill, we're actually using it to invest it in future endeavors. And when I talk about something about future endeavors, I'm not talking about a one-year fix. So that's probably not what I'm looking at. There's plenty of issues we still got to do on a daily basis. But I want to know what changed the needle 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. If you're going to build a building on a university or a community college, what is that building going to be? Who's it going to support? And what is it going to produce? Those are the kind of things that change the needle in the state of Missouri for our kids in this state. And I think we're going to make one of the largest investments we ever have in that arena. And not only are we only do it for 1 year, this is not a one and done type scenario. What we're trying to do is build the foundation, which I believe the foundation is already here, and we want to build on that for the next 3 years. So we've talked to the presidents of most of the universities, community college, and most everybody saying, look, this is a 3-year project for us at the governor's office. What you're seeing this year is stage 1. And then we're going to go to another level next year and another level and continue to grow what we're doing. And we're going to have to admit the things we do good, which we all like to do, and we're also going to have to take a good look at some of the things we're not very good at. And we've got to really come to the reality of how do we change the process to do that. This all starts out with the cooperation of K through 12. I'll even go back to early childhood development that we have to our community college, to our training centers, to our universities. So let me just say a couple of things quick about the big picture. All of this starts with a kid. So we all have to come to the conclusion that if we're not going to get a kid in a classroom, no matter where they live, we're going to continue to get the same results of society as a whole. So if you really want to do something about health care, if you want to do something about crime, you've got to figure out a way to get a kid in a classroom setting, whatever that takes. Public, private, Christian, charter, whatever that is, we'll have those discussions all day long. But a kid needs to have an education. And then he also needs to know what the workforce of tomorrow is. Everything we've done has been built around that scenario, and everything we continue to do is what's in mind. It's about the future of Missouri. And when I'm talking about the future of Missouri, I'm talking long after any of us sitting at this table is going to be here. What is the foundation we're going to build to do these things we're talking about? And those things are very important to me. For the first time in a long, long time, we're doing expansion in higher education of the core funding that we're doing for higher education. Because most of the time, those are the places you go to cut. We're doing just the opposite. We're going to make one of the largest investments in a long time in the core funding of our education institutions across the state. 5.4%. Now, that sounds good, and I'm very pleased to be able to do that, but I will tell you, it's the strings that are attached. So here's the strings I'm going to attach with that. I'm expecting more. So I'm not going to accept the same old status quo. If we're going to invest in you, I want you to invest in those students, and I want you to do more to be able to get more into the workforce arena. How do we get those kids in and out of there? We're going to invest almost $20 million in area career centers across the state, trying to make sure that young people know what they need to up their skills to be able to do that. Missouri Excels, $31.5 million we're going to expand in. Dual credit scholarships, $7 million additional. A-plus scholarship program, $6 million in that. And one that we all have to address, and this is one you can help me with today, you have to do something with the teachers' pay in the state of Missouri. We are dead last in the nation. It's one I don't like to brag about too much, but we're last in the United States. The base pay for a teacher in the state of Missouri is $25,000. So to put that in perspective, that's $12 an hour, roughly, that we're asking teachers to do. Now, I realize not everybody pays at that level, but that is the base pay. We've got to change that base pay, and our recommendation in the budget, and we're working with legislators now to try to get that up to $38,000 base pay. We have got to do a better job of taking care of teachers in this state. Half the teachers in the state of Missouri in the first 5 years go to a different field. So 50% of the people that go into that teaching arena are gone in 5 years. We got to change that trend. That's not good for our state, it's not good for our kids, and it's not consistency in what we're going to try to do. So that's another thing we got to do. Higher education improvements. Everybody in the higher education arena, your number one project is on our list to be done. So every university setting in the state of Missouri, every community college, your number one priority is our number one priority. Again, what comes with that? We want to make sure those priorities are building the future of our state in workforce development. I think those are things to do. The other thing that is important is we got to really take a good look, and one of the things I've learned through the pandemic when it comes to child care. Child care is a huge issue almost in any entity in the state of Missouri. Whether you're a student in high school, whether you're a student in a university, at community colleges, or whether it's a business arena, we have to address the child care issues of this state and how we're going to do that. And how do we partner with you as universities, community colleges? How do we partner with you to expand those services to do that? One of the things I've also found out when I talk about that, we talk about when it comes to child care services, we have a tendency to think of child care services most time of the daytime. We have a tendency to kind of do that, just the way we all grew up a little bit. But the reality of it, there's hundreds of thousands of people working night shifts and midnight shifts. We got to be able to take those services to those people, because the one thing you want to do is you want to keep them in the education community. I do want to highlight another point, and we could talk about infrastructure. Without a doubt, we got to improve the infrastructure in this state. When you look at broadband, for example, we're going to make one of the largest investments in our state's history in broadband. I think we all realized we had a problem with that, but I think the pandemic highlighted that also. And I think in the state sometimes everybody has a tendency to think that's kind of out there in rural Missouri, which it is a problem. But I'll tell you, you got the same problems, whether you're in St. Charles, whether you're in St. Louis, whether you're in Kansas City, you got the same problems too. And if we're going to compete, if you're going to give a kid an education, if you're going to compete in the business arena, you have to have high-speed internet to be able to do that. That's just something we got to expect, and we got to drive harder to do. Back in the 30s and 40s when we were trying to put electricity in everybody's house, the same scenarios existed back then. Not that anybody was there then to remember that, but I'm telling you they were. History will tell you that. And we thought, how are we going to get electricity to rural houses? How are we going to get electricity to every home? And they did. And today you don't think anything about going into a building, flipping on a switch, and expecting electricity. You got to think the same way with high-speed internet. with communication. That's the future, and we can't get behind on that. One I want to bring up, because Harris Stowe's here, something I'm very proud of, that I got to partner with Lincoln University, and Harris Stowe also a part of that. When we talk about infrastructure, when we talk about community development, and how do we do things a little better on that, one of the things that we did, we were trying to figure out how to get more diverse in law enforcement in the state of Missouri. So it's great to be able to say we want that, but as I learned from being governor, it's a much bigger job than just saying what you want or saying we need this. And then it begins, how do you deliver that? And I think one of the proudest things that I've had that probably has been overlooked a lot, but Lincoln University was the first black college in the United States of America to have a law enforcement training academy. Now, I was shocked when I found that out. And I thought, surely somewhere along the way in all these years, somebody has done this before. But it hadn't. So we were able to help Lincoln University get that qualification, that standard, and also I'm partnering that with Harris Stowe. I know you guys are currently working on that with the sheriff up here on a lot of things like that. Those are the kind of things I'm talking about. You got to think outside the box. Now, and I could go on. I'm going to let Aaron follow up with some of the things else we're talking about. But when you think about telehealth, telemedicine, all of those things is going to be the new wave of healthcare. We got to be ready for that, which means students have got to be prepared for that also. I will tell you one thing that I have noticed, and we got to figure out, and also I'm going to be asking for all of you to help with that. And I don't have the answer for it right now. But as I go around high schools to different career centers where I see kids have an opportunity to learn things, they're not as diverse as they should be. And there's a problem there. And I don't know what that problem is, but we've got to find out why. We've got to find out why an African American, Hispanic, or any of the minorities out there, why are they not involved in these programs at a high school level? But there's a disconnect there. I don't know. Again, we're trying to look into that from our side, but you that are in the education business, that you're there, we need to find out why that is. Because them opportunities there, we're spending a lot of money trying to get kids into this workforce development arena, but there is a hesitation there. And I don't understand what that is. So we're going to be trying to build a platform to figure out how do we do that better from our side of it. But when you go to these high schools and you see all these programs, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's healthcare, you can just almost name the program. The diversity in those classrooms, considering what schools I'm going to, is not there. And we've got to figure that out. We got to do a little better job on that. But the good news is, financially, we're in good shape. We're going to continue to invest in workforce, but I need you guys as partners to be able to do that. But you're going to have an opportunity, like I said in the beginning, that you've never had before. I'm just telling you. We just got to get it right. We got to get it right. So that, Aaron, let me let you add into that.
So, Aaron Willer, I serve as Governor Parson's chief of staff, and I don't get out of the office a whole lot, but especially whenever we're talking infrastructure and workforce development, those are things that I'm really passionate about. Those are things that I want to make sure that I participate in, because I think it's important that I be able to kind of hear from some of the other partners that we've created on some of the priorities that we've really set. And as the governor said early on, we had this conversation about, well, what do we really want to focus on? You know, because in the past, and politicians sometimes, and this isn't a poke at anybody individually, but they're really good at saying this is a priority and that's a priority and this is a priority and that's a priority. And we had a really honest and frank conversation and said, look, if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. And so what are we going to focus on and really make it a priority? And then not only move the needle, but then you can't just say, hey, we're going to go out there and do once, and you show up and you cut the ribbon, or you have the press conference. It's really got to be, then what's the follow-up after that? And what do we follow up after that? And what's the follow-up after that? So that you just continually keep knocking away at what those priorities are. And so the governor had mentioned a couple of them, but we came in, Fast Track was one of the biggest, first really large things that we did, focused on working adults. So the reason we focused on that is because we knew they were already in the workforce. In an ideal situation, what we do is we really start at the K-12 level. And we did that too. We started the Office of Childhood, really started bringing a lot of these resources at the state level together. But start with Fast Track. That is the population that we can essentially train the fastest, get them back into that high need area. So that was part of the reason we did that. And we've consistently kind of gone back and working a little bit earlier with each of the populations that we have in the state. We got MoExcels was another one. Those are the training centers. A lot of you are probably familiar with some of the MoExcels projects we've done around the state. And it's fantastic. We got the CTE, the governor mentioned that. I mean, really going at the high school level and updating the equipment and facilities and things like that for the high school level, get that career technical education. Work ready certificates is something that we've done through a lot of counties, and I hope that some of the counties, if you're not here in St. Louis, that your counties are really looking at that. That's to give that high school student something else to be able to go out there with an employer and say, hey, this has meaning, this will help me get a job. Graduation plans is another thing that we're really looking at. And with this group in particular, what I think is so important to keep in mind, because we looked at some of these numbers early on, high school, we know that that's such a foundational achievement that really a student needs to be able to get that high school diploma, or even a GED. They have to have that. It's so important for the future success. And we know college is really important. And we spend a huge amount of money really focusing on college. And the growth trajectory for an individual, if they get that 4-year degree, is amazing. But the reality is in the state of Missouri, it's about 30-70 split. Only about 30 of the people in our state have a college degree. So what are we doing for the vast majority of the rest of the population? And that's where I think that this group, it's so important, because you all really sit at a place where you're that connector. You're the ones that have those evening programs, that do a lot of, you've come up with some creative solutions on childcare to really open up and expand the opportunities for individuals so that they can go back and find the educational opportunity to really expand themselves, to grow. I think that's what's so exciting. And you guys, honestly, you've answered that call, because we look at a lot of these programs and where you guys are wanting to invest. The healthcare sciences, manufacturing, stuff like that is just awesome. It's really tapping in to what the job force of the future wants. And so that's why I think we're so excited to see where the next step is going to be. I mean, we're committed to making sure that we continue to put those resources, but it's always going to come with an ask. As the governor said, there's going to be that string attached to it. There's going to be some expectations. It's going to be expectations on what are we getting out of it? What are those students getting out of it? That's what really matters, and that's why I think it's so exciting, because we're at a time where we're willing to say we'll commit the resources. The state is actually in a good financial position for us to be able to make some of those investments. We think they have to be prioritized, and we will do it. And I think that the future is going to be incredibly bright, not only for this region, which you guys are leading, but across the entire state. And so I think it's going to be an exciting next chapter.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. Now, he mentioned early on that he didn't get out of the office much. So I'm going to share a story why he didn't get out of the office very much. So you can kind of see how he's dressed today, right? This is kind of how he goes. So I took him to the state fair with me one time, right? So I got jeans and a polo shirt on, trying to blend in a little bit. He goes like this. He's got his state ID wrapped around his neck. Every food vendor in there was shutting their doors and starting to take off. They thought he was a state health inspector coming there. So I can't take him out very often. But let me tell you, Aaron is the type of guy I couldn't be more proud of to have him as my chief of staff to start off with, because it is one of the most difficult jobs that you could ever have, being the governor's chief of staff. Because he doesn't get to be the nice guy every day and to get all the publicity that he has to deal with it. But I will tell you one thing I've learned from him, dealing with my directors, with presidents of universities and stuff, when they come in and they say they got problems, one thing you'll learn when you come in and see him after very many times, you better have a solution to the problem, or better have an idea how you're going to fix it. Because if you just come to us and say, you got a problem, you better have some idea of what you're going to do. And just don't bring that into us and says, hey, you got to fix it. That's why we're looking to all of you, every one of you at this table, in some capacity as a leader, or you wouldn't be sitting at this table. So we expect you to come with solutions sometimes to tell us how we can do it better. And we're fine with that, but that's one of the things he'll do with that. So let me kick it back over to whoever going to Jeff. Am I going to you?
Yeah.
All right.
I think I'm next in the speaking order, Governor.
Okay.
Well, thanks. On behalf of all of our higher education partners, we want to thank you. We're so excited about the budget that you have recommended for us. And I just think a lot of great things ahead. We're so pleased that we have the opportunity to host this event in this new building. This building, I was sitting listening to you about we need to do things differently, and we need to do things better. This building, if you go around and look at it, you're really not going to see hardly any classrooms. You're mainly going to see simulation space and lab space, and we actually have spaces that are clinical spaces for the students. They get real-time experience working with patients here in this building. So when we thought about this building, the faculty did a great job designing it. The focus was on what's the workplace look like? What are the students going to see when they get here? They want to see the same thing they get when they go into employment. And I think the faculty really captured it here. Well, the big winners are the students, the employers, and collectively our economy. All of us here in the St. Louis region are pulling together, working as a team. There was an article that came out Sunday about the population here. We want to grow the population here, and we know that starts with a strong foundation of a workforce. And we're just so appreciative of all that you've done in that area. And for St. Louis Community College, the governor knows we went to the polls last August. And really, we just followed his cue. We put on the ballot language, this is for the expansion of workforce development programs. And the voters responded resoundingly, yes, this is what you need to focus on. So the voters have heard you here in St. Louis City and St. Louis County. We're going to just spend a few minutes apiece. I'll call on the other leaders here in regards to what your recommended budget means for each of us. We're here in St. Louis. We're incredibly excited about the $8.3 million addition to our core funding if this is approved for all the community colleges in Missouri. So that would be a huge win. We also are receiving or estimating to receive $450,000 for a transportation center here at the Forest Park campus from MoExcels. Truck driving, as you know, and logistics training is a huge need here in St. Louis. And as a part of our expansion to workforce development, we're putting a transportation and logistics center here as well. So that will really complement that. The really amazing transformational change that can happen from this funding would be another building like this at our Florissant Valley campus in Ferguson. We have 14 degree and certificate programs in this building. The minute we turned the key and opened this building, it was full of students and waiting list. So we know, based on all of the needs of healthcare workers in St. Louis County, just for example, 2,500 vacancies in RNs alone. I mean, that's getting to when you get to be my age, that's getting scary when there aren't nurses around. But we all have to focus on helping individuals understand the incredible careers and high paid wages that can come out of that. A few other things, Governor, I don't know if you're even aware of all this, but what you've done for St. Louis Community College the last couple of years has just been amazing. And when we add it all up, because you talked about early child care development, $4 million for a new center that's going into this building. Next door, I understand we have approval or conditional approval for another $800,000. That will be open in the not too distant future. We received $630,000 for this building, particularly in respiratory care and fourth floor activities through Gear Excels funds that you made available to us. And then we received another $1.5 million for all community college for deferred maintenance. And when you have as many buildings as we have, that means a lot. But as I've told the staff, and they all know, when we're done with all the work, about $420 million worth of construction that's coming, we'll probably have less space, but it's going to be space like this.
Yeah.
That's highly needed and focused on student needs and employer needs going forward. So without this transformational budget, we couldn't get this done. And I know that at the city of Ferguson and North County, there are 350,000 people that live up there. They're desperate for healthcare workers. They're desperate for jobs and careers.
Yeah.
So this is going to make a great difference. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. A few others I'm sure that are fussy to get the Steve to say something too. Dr. Barbara Cavalier is just doing a great job of leading St. Charles Community College. Barbara.
Thank you, Dr. Pittman. Thank you for hosting us today. It's just always a joy to be here
Thank
with
you, Rob.
Governor.
Thank you.
I was so excited when you sent out your proposal for the art funds because you said you wanted proposals that were innovative and transformative. And I
Right.
thought that's our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
at St. Charles Community College, because 3 years ago, our Board of Trustees actually adopted budget principles that said we had to be innovative in how we came up with new ideas in transforming higher education and working with business and industry. And because of your vision, I think we've been able to cultivate a shared vision around what you want to do and what we want to do, not just for the college, but for the community throughout St. Charles County.
Right.
And so we've been very fortunate to receive, I think, every Excel proposal that's come forward. We've been granted. It started, the very first one, $1.5 million to reimagine what culinary and agriculture and healthcare looks like, and what we could do at our college if we merged those three together and started building healthy communities, because we know if we want to attract
Right.
people to Missouri and to St. Charles Community College and the county, we've got to improve quality of life and make it a cool place for people to live. And so we're so excited. Everything we're doing with that is innovative. Next month will be the first community college in the state of Missouri to have a freight farm, to
All right.
introduce the latest technology in growing produce. And so
Right.
we're very excited about that. I hope y'all can come.
Yeah.
And we'd love to give you a private tour.
Okay.
We also received the gear funds for a truck driving, certified truck driving.
Yeah. Good.
This came from our superintendents. They said, please, we desperately need this. So we're excited about that. And of course, the big news for us, we put in our proposal for ARP funds, our new regional workforce and technical center for our entire western part of our county, which will serve Lincoln, Pike, Callaway, Montgomery. Huge opportunity to expand manufacturing, secure logistics. There's so much going on. Robotics, working
Yeah.
with GM.
Right.
So again, none of this would have happened if you hadn't had the vision and provided the support for us to do, because it's so expensive to do technical programming.
Sure.
So expensive. So we appreciate your vision, and we appreciate the fact that we were aligned in what we wanted to do as a college and what you wanted to do as a governor.
Yeah.
So thank you, Governor Parson.
Thank
We
you.
really greatly appreciate your support.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dr. LaTanya Cullen-Smith, our brand-new president at
Yeah.
Harris Stowe State University. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all, and thank you all for welcoming me and Governor. We are so excited about all of your support to Harris Stowe in particular, starting with last summer signing the statewide mission in STEM for us to be
Right.
able to help under-resourced and underserved populations go into the field of STEM. So we are extremely excited about the opportunity to be able to build a new STEM building on our campus. We're also very excited about the funding that we receive for entrepreneurship. We will be opening our new Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship this fall. And this evening, we are starting our first certification program for justice-involved individuals. So we are working to change the landscape here in the metropolitan area and in our region for individuals who have been justice involved, and hoping that they will be able to walk away with a certificate in entrepreneurship. We're also excited about our partnership with Lincoln University, as you mentioned earlier, working for post-commission certification, and so we look forward to inviting you back for
Good.
the first graduating class of those individuals who will be completing their year-long post-commission certification. And lastly, we're tremendously grateful, as you mentioned. You have to start in K through 12. That is very important, and the
Yeah.
foundation of Harris Stowe is education, and we will not shy away from that. And so we're definitely excited about the continued support for our alternative certification program for educators who are actually working currently in the field, and they may not have their certification to be able to teach. And so we're excited to be able to help different school districts partner with them in order to get those TAs to transform into certified educators. So thank you so much.
Good.
Dr.
Let me
I'm sorry,
let,
go
me
ahead.
let me add something real quick. When you said you're trying to get trainers and things like, I want to tell you something else I want to brag about just a second. I'm going to brag about this one because I'm an old veteran, so I want to brag about this. Our National Guard has just been distinguished as one of the top in the United States. And what we're taking of 170 MOSs in the National Guard, we're now making them available to instruct. to help with training exercise, to be instructors in the private sector. These men and women have had enormous amounts of training, and to be able to help fill some of these gaps that you need for specialists and things. And it is number one in the United States right now for what we've developed our Missouri National Guard and State. A lot of resources out there. We got to tap into them to help you to be able to do that. So keep that in mind as you keep moving forward. You reminded me of that when you was kind of talking about that. So go ahead, Jeff.
All right, thanks. Dr. Kristen Sobolik is at UMSL, one of our great transfer partners, and you're still relatively new in your role. That know you've been at the university for a while, so welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for hosting this, Dr. Pittman. We appreciate that. And Governor Parson, always appreciate your support. And I think you're spot on when you take a look at the future of Missouri and workforce development and economic development for the state. There's no better place to invest than in education, because we are a multiplier for the economy of the entire state. When you just take a look at UMSL, for example, we have the largest alumni base in the region, but our annual economic impact is $429 million, and our alumni network impact is $13.4 billion to this region. And many of our alums are also alums of our community college partners, of our transfer partners, of which we have many. And so that's a huge investment in this region and in the entire state. So putting another 5.4% to the core, that's going to be huge for all of us across the state. And we are very focused on workforce development. We all know and feel, I know the presidents, I see them and we talk about it a lot, is how can we modify and change higher education to be relevant not only for now, but for the future. And it's all about that workforce development component and making sure that we have a very clear pipeline from high school, as you indicated, to technical college, to community college, to university, wherever people can stop off at different points to make sure that they have that access and opportunity to come back in and develop their own professional career, but also then with that graduation, and it's about graduation and getting into the workforce, making sure then that they are impacting themselves, but also their families, our entire region, and then ultimately the state. So your investment, I think, is sound. It is well needed right now, and it is very much appreciated. And it's appreciated at the University of Missouri St. Louis as well.
All
So
right. Thank you,
Governor
Kristen.
Parson.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
The partners in this room do a tremendous job in a lot of ways, but creating affordable pathways for our students. With the individual setting in this room, we can get a lot of our students through, a majority of them, with no debt, Governor. With the financial aid that's available not only from the state, but from the federal government right now, we're incredibly blessed. And student debt is a really big problem nationally, about $1.4 trillion. It's huge. It's the fastest growing piece of debt right now. So we just want to assure you we're doing our part here for very affordable pathways. And certainly to our south, Dr. Dina McCaffrey at Jefferson College, is really a strong anchor for the region and doing all the things that community colleges do. And we're really appreciative to have her.
Dina?
Thank you, and thank you, Governor Parsons. There's like 3 different things that have been said that I think we can all piggyback on, and you talk about the pathways for students. We at Jefferson College, we actually have the Career Center for the 12 school districts within Jefferson County on our campus, the area technical school.
Right.
And students, there's 13 different programs from welding to metal fab, culinary arts, health services. So they are getting their start in high school, and they graduate with many of them with college credit, but all of them have the opportunity to earn an industry recognized credential. So some of those students go directly to work, others continue on at Jefferson College in our programs where they can earn a associate's degree in those areas. And in our Pathways programs with those and talking about workforce partners, we are piloting this year and ready to roll out, I think, start to scale it, is you start in high school in our health services and you get your CNA. If you stay a second year in high school, you get your patient care tech. Once you have that, you're going to work for Mercy Hospital Jefferson, who will then work with you, our nursing program. There's just a couple in the state that are level 1 where you earn your LPN, and level 2 is your RN. So everyone thinks they're coming in to get their RN, but life happens for a lot of our students, especially adult students. And so they can get a credential along the way at the LPN level and go to work if that's what they need at that time, and they can come back and bridge into the RN program. So that's a real strong benefit for those students that have that starting in high school. And some of them finish it 2 years after they graduate high school, and some of them don't finish it till 15 years later. But we often see those students coming back, so we really appreciate that. And to actually help with that program, we received a Gears grant for that patient care
Okay.
tech, so that we can outfit the space in not a brand new building, but similarly here, all of our health
Good.
occupation programs have hands-on spaces where they get to learn those things on our campus. We also have benefited from the MoExcels programs. We are getting ready with, assuming the budget gets approved this year, a cybersecurity, a cyber data center. So we have a CIS program associate's
Good.
degree. We've been able to expand a vet tech barn for that because we're one of only 4 vet tech programs in the state, and we now have a partnership with Mizzou for a bachelor's in vet tech. So it's a seamless transfer for students who want that. And then our ARPA program that is out for the state is actually improvements and expanding one of our facilities in Arnold to house our EMT paramedic and our law enforcement academy, and be able to expand and grow those programs, because we know in both of those we have such a need throughout the entire state, but in Jefferson County specifically, law enforcement, and continue to grow to support that. So thank you for all of those initiatives that have helped us
All right.
in Jefferson County.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep, we also have some workforce development partners here today. Don't know if they have any questions or, or comments. I mean, for us, it's how can we better partner to align individuals with these high-wage careers and jobs that are so desperately needed by our region? And it can't work without you. So we need your continued support and help as well. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Tim Brink, presiding commissioner of Franklin County, but I'm also president of the Jefferson Franklin Workforce Development Board this year. Dennis Gannon and I alternate. But the fact of the matter is, Governor, you and a true son of St. Louis, Lieutenant Governor Mike Keogh, hit on a lot of things relative to the workforces that exist in Missouri today, and that is this child care aspect of it. The pandemic truly exposed the desire for parents,
Right.
be they young, be they old, be they married or unmarried, to stay home with their kids or what have you, or have some care provided for those children at the workplace. And I think the initiative that you and your administration have taken in bringing this to light to the state is second to none. I think it's very important that we recognize, look, a lot of these folks are staying home now because these child care facilities have closed up or haven't got the capacity for these opportunities. And to focus some of these resources at that level is extremely important for those established adults that have to provide for those families. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. I think I'm going to echo what I said earlier. When we talk about workforce development, we're on a university campus, and I get that. But the reality of it, I'm going to go back to where I said in the beginning. It starts with a kid. Where it starts. All of these phases, to talk about workforce development, one, you got to have a job. Two, you got to have the daycare services out there to help with that job. And all of that is one package. It's a multiple package, but it's not as simply as just saying it's all about the workforce. There's a lot of pieces go into developing the workforce of what you're saying, and you got to address out all of those issues. When I want to make this comment. Well, I want to make a couple of comments, then we'll turn it back over to questions. There's nothing, and I appreciate being able to sit at this table, at the head of the table, and talk to all of you as leaders here. But I'll tell you what made my day is when I walked in here today, somewhat unannounced, to those kids downstairs, and I had opportunity to talk to 12 students down there, 10 or 12 students that were standing around there chit-chatting. They were dental hygienists. And I thought to myself, and I just talked to him for a little bit briefly, unannounced, and says, how's it going? And they talked to me about going to school and the challenges it had with it and everything. That's the vision that we've had all along at the governor's office. I walked down the hallway just a little bit further, and there were some of the maintenance people there. And I stepped in there and talked to some of them that was in maintenance. And I thought, those are the kind of people I think a fast track. I think you need another step. And we've got a program out there that can help you go to that next level, that next position that we do that. So it's rewarding to me to actually see these things happening and getting to see those firsthand people that get to receive what it is we're all doing. So why is this so important to me? And why is this so important to you? I just want to read you a few numbers on the national level. You know, we always look at some of the national rankings we have. I've been to so many conferences, and honestly, I'll be honest with you, there's been a lot of times early on in my career, if Missouri was in the middle of the pack, I was pretty satisfied. I was saying, okay, that's not so bad, it's not so good, that's kind of where we are. And I just, after I got to knowing a little bit more governors and I got to see what people were doing, I'm thinking, we're better than this. We really are. So I want to just tell you things that you have done with us as partners. It's not something the governor's office done. This is what all of you sitting at this table have done and have decided to do a little different vision. So let me just read off some rankings for you and see how many of these hit home with you. And we'll be glad to provide these rankings for you after this is over. But we are now first in the United States for on-the-job training. We are third in the United States for apprenticeships. We are fourth in the United States for new manufacturing facilities. We are fourth in the United States for best places to retire. We are fifth in the United States for our low cost of doing business. We are seventh in the United States for people relocating to our state. We are seventh in the United States for tech manufacturing growth. We are eighth in the United States for economic recovery. Eighth in the United States for best places to work for nurses. We are 10th in the United States for automobile and aerospace industries. We are 10th in the United States for new business expansions. We are 10th in the United States for site selections. And we are 10th in the United States for women in technology. All of those things are top 10. It's because we are sharing the same vision. And when CEOs and companies look to what we're doing in this state and why you should spread every bit of this as much as you can to everybody you know, that's what brings businesses here, because we are doing things differently in Missouri than what we have in the past. That's why these statistical informations are so important to me, and it's because of what we all did together. And Barbara, you mentioned that we all shared a vision once upon a time. Christine, you mentioned it too. All of you have. By working together for a common cause that's just good for people. That's what we're trying to do here. That's the results of all of us working together. And I'm telling you, every day, you ought to be telling your communities these rankings. You ought to tell your students these rankings. You ought to tell the people you go to church with your rankings. And Tim, everybody you run across, you should be talking about this. This is how you expand these programs. Because if they believe that you're really changing the needle in this state, more and more people will get involved. And that's a plus for all of us. That's how important these things are and what we're doing in this state. So it's important. All right. Yes, sir.
I want to echo your comments, Governor. It's been almost a year since you visited Parson and Four Rivers. And since that visit, our kids walk taller, their heads are held high because they know that a person of influence believed in what they're doing. In their mind, it justified it. It's not, I've taken this because I know the choice. This is their choice, and by your support, we've gone from 500 students to 700 students, starting our 20th program of study.
Right.
So our face and climate has changed. And I also want to kind of add, this is my 30th year in education. Fully vested, I can retire in June, but because of things like this, keeps me going, because we've got so much important work to do. And in my mind, there's a lot of great teachers that are retiring because they are at their rule of 80. So might be something to consider. What incentives do you have for these great teachers to stay and fight the fight they fight? Because it's a noble profession and they're great teachers.
Good point.
Also wanted to add finally too that not only do our students need technical education at the junior and senior level and transpose into the junior college and community colleges, but actually starts, like you said, with the kids down kindergarten. So our district's looking at how to have a common language and start these career connections earlier and earlier, studying Holland codes and doing these things and embedding them in so that by the time they're in high school, the really need is for that counseling piece or guidance piece to get these kids on the right path with,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Krista said, entry points and exit points, so that we're having a comprehensive approach so that every student's successful.
Yeah, good comments. You know, I read an article not too long ago, the number one untapped resources in America are retirees. They're sitting on the sidelines every day with skill sets that are unreal, and we're not reaching back and saying, hey, would you be willing to come back and help us a little bit? And they say that's something we don't do a very good job of, and I have to be inclined to believe just what you said. I don't know if anybody's tapping them teachers on and said, hey, would you come back and help, or a little bit,
Well,
but
so
anyhow.
with the rules like that, like a retired teacher, there's so many rules that they have to, they cannot do this or can't do that, so there are opportunities there.
During,
Shortage of teachers, I mean, I think it might be something to weigh in on.
now everybody might not agree with this, but during the pandemic, we waived over 600 rules and regulations. And I'm going to say about 599 of them ought to be permanent. To be right honest about it, I'm just thinking, you know, really, and we do so much bureaucracy to create people from not being able to come and help us. But I do think we need to look at that, and I think we will. I think we're going to look at that on that. But good points, good points. Yes, sir.
You know, Governor, the statistics that you read, they tie into the statement I heard you say in the Missouri One Stop Program video. Paraphrasing, you said that all this we do in terms of workforce development, economic development, is to support our families in Missouri, to change the lives of our individual residents.
Right.
But let's keep in mind, Missouri has to be competitive. And if we're competitive as a state, we all will. So I want to compliment you on your choice for leadership of the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development. I spent a day with Commissioner Mulligan
Right.
and Dr. Marty Levins.
Right.
I looked over the 3 to 5 year strategic plan, so that tells me you're holding your team accountable. But within that area, you also have combined higher education, workforce development, and economic research, so that the data can keep us all accountable. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna brag. I'm so happy. So I'm kind of a nerd on this stuff. I am so happy you brought that up because that was something that, to be really honest, early on it was kind of a forced marriage. Higher ed, you know, no offense, was kind of like, wait a minute, we don't do this. This is we've kind of got, you know, we stay in our towers, and this is we stay in the protection of our towers. We said no, you got to look differently. You got to start seeing the future, and the future is going to be that higher education has to be married with workforce development. That is where the future is going to be. And so internally, Governor always says we got to do better, but we're going to have to do better by leading. So what we just said is, look, one of the first things out of the gate, we're going to reorganize these departments. You guys are going to cohabitate. You've got to start putting your strategic plans together. They have to be aligned, and then we're going to pull in the data segment, and then we're going to start proving it. So I mean, from a nerd standpoint, you don't understand how happy you just made me. You just said that was a good thing. So I appreciate that. Thank you for commenting on it. We really do think though, it's really about the long term. It's about the future of that, and just having that piece is going to be a better resource for all of you. It's a better resource for all of you in the future. So.
It's good to bring Aaron out once in a while.
I can turn him loose sometimes if I have to. That's good. Thank you for your comment. But that's the vision we have, and I'm going to go back to what you just said. I've been around long term. I've heard lots of politicians speak, and I've heard them polished, and they're good at making speeches. But you know the great thing for me being governor right now, I don't care about politics or elections. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I just get to go to work every day and say, how do I make this state better for our kids and our grandkids? That's the way I look at it. I don't need anybody to slap me on the back anymore, tell me, you know, you're a great governor and all that stuff. I just want to get out there and implement this stuff, and I want to hear somebody like you say it's working, and that we're going to build on that foundation. I'm telling you, it's a foundation. We're not done building the building yet on that. Appreciate it.
But I'm just going to say this, but you are a great governor.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, you got it.
Governor, I just
Yeah.
want to thank you for being here and inviting us
educational background, all about work on behalf of the city. My name is Vernon Mitchell Jr.
Okay.
Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer for the city of St. Louis.
Okay.
And workforce development is vitally important to the thriving of any metropolitan area, but definitely for any state. So Aaron, I look forward to working with you and talking about what the strings that are attached to making
Yeah.
sure that we
Yeah.
do this work.
Right.
And making sure we have partnerships with our public entities that are here that also become anchored, not just our private ones, not that they're not important, but we need the strong public ones. So having
Yeah.
state diversity here is
Right.
incredibly important. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, I was in South Carolina last year as a professor. I moved back to St. Louis before my kids and my grandkids, who aren't here yet, but future generations. So,
Yeah.
you know, Mayor Jones talks about St. Louis and the state being a place where everybody can win.
Yeah.
We need that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear you say that. It's encouraging. I look forward to working with your administration on this mission.
You know, one of the things that we all live in different aspects of the state of Missouri, but when you look at from the governor's prism of how this works, our state is so diverse. But you need all of it working. You need and you got to be able to figure out a plan how you make everything coincide with one another. When I remember when I first became governor, I went down to Martin Luther King Boulevard. I met with some of the churches down there. I met with some of the struggles that people really have every day, you know, which we take for granted a lot of times. We think going to the grocery store is no big deal. Depends where you live. We think getting health care is not too big a deal. We can all go somewhere in our statures to be able to do that. There's a lot of people can't. You know, when you start over sitting, you talk to a 65-year-old lady and she says, you know, I'm a little afraid to walk down the street just to go for a walk. Those are all problems that is part of workforce development. It's about early childhood development, as I said before. If you want to change that, you got to do something different than what we've been doing. Because I'm just telling you, if you do the same thing we've been doing in those regions of the state, you have to change the mindset. And this is something been going on for decades and decades. But if you just kind of think the problem's somehow going to get better, it's not. So we got to figure out how we step outside our comfort zones a little bit and how we deliver those services to there, whether it be healthcare, whether it be education, whether it be daycare. You got to get there too. So when I talk about those programs, it's not always just the easier ones that you can deal with. Sometimes it's got to deal with difficult situations. I think that's important to me to do that. So, good point. Good point.
I was just going to say one thing, Governor Parsons and Aaron, and sort of tying in to some of the comments that we've been hearing. I think the thing that is most impressive for me as a longtime educator and a trauma nurse that's staying in healthcare now and in education is that with the merger of the Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development, we put our money where our mouth was. As a state, we stepped up and said, not only should the strategic plan make sense, but it really needs to be measurable goals that we all know and understand, because what that did for us as a state, when we were able to come together, as Dr. Cavalier and several others have said today, is that we stopped this, I don't want to embarrass you, but silliness in the education mindset that said high schools have to compete for this number of students, career centers have to compete for the same students that the four-year institutions have to compete with, and if you go after a career technical degree, then you are not going to move on to a four-year education, and you are not. But what we have been able now to do in a roundtable discussion in education is said, no, where are the safety nets? Where on the pathway can students step out because life happened? You know, how many of us did we hear say today, now we are saying as a community college, what can we do with our K-12 partners and our career center partners and our county partners? How do we work with our four-year partners? And that strategic plan with the merger of higher ed and career workforce development, I think sort of said enough with the competition. We are one state, we are striving together to provide a better pathway forward for those that live in the state of Missouri. And then the top 10 statistics, they're powerful because we know we were a part of that now because we are on the same team. And a good coach makes a strong team. And I think that has been fun. When I hear people say they want to be back in Missouri, that's powerful.
Yeah. good.
And that plan, Aaron, when you say I'm nerded out about it, so am I.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
am I,
Yeah.
because it's doing what many states are unable to do right now.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my heartfelt thank you.
Well, thank you. Barbara, give her a little bit of a raise, would you? I mean, she did a good job on that. Just a good job. Let me kind of just echo what you're saying, Amy, because we did feel that when we first went in. We know the high school had their little arena they were in. We knew community college has theirs. We knew that. And we knew government had theirs.
Yep.
Because we thought we knew best. Universities sometimes used to think they knew what was best. And honestly, it was a matter of breaking the whole system down. I had to first realize when I first went in there, I'll just share a couple of quick stories with you. Economic development in the state of Missouri. We had one of the largest economic development agencies in the region. Had over 800 employees in economic development. Statistically, 40 this, 40 that, just terrible at what we were doing because we wasn't partnered with education arenas. First of all, I had to admit this is not very good. This is not a good form of bureaucracy or government. So we really took that agency down to less than 200 people. And we are better today and hitting home runs every day with economic development. We did the same thing with Office of Childhood. We had that thing strung out in so many divisions and so many departments that the people that really needed the services wasn't getting it because we didn't know what the other department was doing or who was being able to do that. And we streamlined that. We did the same thing when we brought workforce development and universities together, the education system together to do that. I will tell you all as leaders at this table, if you're not willing to go out there and analyze your own organizations, and just because you've been doing it that way for 10, 15, 20 years, doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to do it. You ought to always be pretty self-conscious to evaluate yourself to be able to do that. We did that with Department of Corrections. In the Department of Corrections is a success story you won't hear much about, but there was 34,000 inmates in corrections, roughly 34,000 inmates when I first became governor of the state of Missouri. And I'm a law enforcement guy, so I'm a law and order guy, right? So today there's less than 24,000 people. Because we actually have people now incarcerated learning how to be roofers. We're teaching them how to be getting a high school diploma. We're teaching them how to be truck drivers. You know, somebody asked me one time, why are people in prison not learning how to get a CDL license if they can get a CDL license? Well, that's a good question. Why are we not doing that? Says, well, they don't have trucks. Well, MoDOT's got thousands and thousands of trucks. So it's those kind of things that you got to reform the way we do things. Those are just some quick things I want to mention. When I say what I'm asking you to change, I ask myself to change every day and to be better. And I'm going to keep pushing you to do better. I mean, you may think I'm nice today because we're handing out some money for you to be able to do things, but I'm telling you tomorrow, I'm going to be asking you, what did you do with it? And you better have the answer to it. You know, you're going to think, what happened to that nice guy that was sitting with us in a room one day? You know. So either I'll turn Aaron loose on you, one of the two, I don't know. All right. Good. Sounds like, I think I'm getting pretty close to time. Have we got time? Are we not go? All right, maybe let's take a couple of quick questions. I know everybody hadn't had a chance, so let's try to do that.
Governor, with being part of special school district, we've seen you a couple of times now, and I really do want to commend the fortitude that you're putting into this, because the workforce employment part of it is so key. Being part of special school district, we support the entire St. Louis County, and we support with the CTE programming, and we prepare the students to go to community colleges.
Right.
So that they're really getting experiences to be able to be more successful into the community college setting. The other part of it is the ability to create diversity in our workforce. We really have a great opportunity to give students at a sophomore, junior, and senior level. And the other thing is we're seeing girls going more into technology. We're seeing more students of color going into more typical white industries. So it's really nice to see how we're expanding this out and we're getting our students ready and prepared, and there's less of this barrier. We're more connected to what's expected to be in the community colleges so that they're more prepared. And I think that continuation will only continue to support
Yeah, I keep pushing that retiree deal just because I'm not too far away, so I keep pushing that scenario. Maybe a good time. Self-serving. All right, one more question and we'll get out of here. If anybody's got any.
I've got another comment.
Okay.
You have a young man here in this region that works for Jared Emerson. I met him when he first came. I have been with him on numerous occasions. I've introduced him to a lot of people. And everybody to a person admires him. And he does a damn good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Now you're going to cost me money. That's what you're going to do, you know. On that. Jarrett's a young man that we got to work for me. So couldn't be more proud of him what he's doing up here. He has did a tremendous job with a lot of outreaches up here in the St. Louis region. We want people in our office up here in St. Louis because we realize how valuable this is. Him being on the ground is the only way we can kind of stay in touch with you on a daily basis. So I'm proud of him. We sure want to keep him around a little bit, and I don't want anybody in here thinking about stealing the guy either, so on that. All right, thanks everybody for having us here today. Appreciate you taking the time to do this. Jeff, thanks for hosting us. Appreciate it.